So I had somebody ask me a question about, if you've got pinpoints and how can you share those with, another pilot or something? And the answer is you can't. You can export the pinpoints like we do when we go here. We go export all, right? And you could send that to someone. The problem is that, when you go to your flight route, you can't import those. You can't import that KML, right? So you can go to DJI pins, you can grab that KML file, and no matter which one of these file types that you use, you're going to get a task type error or a data style error, data type error. You're not going to be able to import it, okay? So one of the potential workarounds is, let's say you've got a spot, and you're going to make a bunch of pins, let's say. And so let's just, create a bunch of pins here. Now, I'm not paying much attention to how far apart these pins are, so this could be a little bit outside of visual line of sight. But let's just say we've made those pins, right? We could export these pins, but our other pilot would have no use of them, right? Other than the fact that each of these pins do have a coordinate, and we could, we could copy those to the clipboard and do it that way. The other potential method is that we make a waypoint file that uses these points. So let's go to a flight route. Let's create a waypoint file, and we're just going to do set waypoints. We're going to go find those pins on the map. And so it's a little tedious, I'll be honest. So we're going to basically just, let's go in here and fix our waypoint file. Yes. Okay, so there's our start. And then we're going to go in here and we're going to make our other points. And I'll show you how this works, but you're going to create the pins, kind of the points, kind of loosely, because you can't put it right on top of the pin itself, the pinpoint. Okay. And then we're going to go back and we're going to click this start. We're just going to move that as close to our pin as possible, right? And the farther you zoom in, the farther you can correct that pin. The other possibility is that we actually go to this pin, right? This is waypoint 1, our start point. And we could actually go in there and correct the, directly, correct the longitude and latitude. But, for these purposes, okay, so I'm zoomed in all the way. I can just use my stylus. I got this stylus and I've got it in my lap and I'm not using it. So we're going to go to the next one. We're just going to grab those points, drag them directly on top of our pins. And, again, the farther you zoom in, the closer you can get it, right? So, again, if we needed those pins to be, if we're talking about search and rescue and you got a potential, hit on a human life, right? You're going to want those pins to be pretty accurate. So you're going to want to get them, dead nuts on. Now, if I drag this to right here, you can see tree level, right? So that's one hardwood tree that I'm on. If I'm off by, as much as you see here, that's close enough, right? Even when we're talking about a human life being at stake, I think that's close enough. So I'm going to go through and I'm basically just going to, oops, let me find the pin. Okay, there it is. So I'm just going to drag all these pins, right, to the waypoints to the pins, right? And, once I got that done, and I just got a couple more, then I can save this waypoint file, and then I can share it with the other pilot, and he can directly input that into his Mavic 3T. So this one I'm going to, how do I delete a point? Nope. There we go. All right. Okay, so there you go. So now you've got a waypoint file with waypoints at each of those pins. Now, it kind of depends on how many points you have, right? So let's save that. Okay, waypoints 8. So if you have a whole bunch of pins, then that could become incredibly tedious. So it really just kind of depends on, the priority, right? How important is it that you share these coordinates with someone? And I would argue that doing it this way is still faster than sending them the KML file, them opening the KML file and pulling it in and creating their own individual pinpoints, right? This waypoint file is actually going to be probably faster because you're just quickly dragging and dropping on the screen. Now, if you wanted to export the KML and then read it, share it, and then have someone read it on the other end and get the actual point data, I'm going to work on a method for that, but you would have to have a reader. The RC Pro does not have a text file reader, which is what a KML, you normally would open it as, or a tabular. You could open it in tabular form if you open it in Excel and potentially Google Sheets. Google Sheets might be a good way that you could put the KML in tabular form and then share that with your other pilot, and then he would be able to create pinpoints and then copy and paste the lat and long from the sheets, the Google Sheets or the Excel, and then correct those pinpoints lat and long position. But even that, like I said, that's quite tedious. This is just a quickie way for you to create the file that you can share with another pilot, and they can quickly import into their system. And you don't need to spend the expensive subscription fees for something like Flight Hub. So kind of tedious, but I think this is probably the quickest way to turn your pinpoints into a shareable file that another pilot can use. So hope that was helpful. I'm always trying to find, better ways for us to use what we have and not have to pay a bunch of external subscriptions or use a bunch of costly, supporting apps or features. But I hope this was helpful.